This quick guide video shows how to set up the system for eABR testing. When testing a patient with a cochlear or brainstem implant, additional equipment from the implant manufacturer is needed in order to provide the electrical stimulus required for eABR testing. To perform an eABR recording, you will require a cochlear implant stimulator and appropriate software, an evoked potential system which has a trigger function with appropriate flexibility to accommodate eABR testing in its software, and lastly, a trigger cable to connect the cochlear implant system to the evoked potential system. Firstly, the eABR recording system should be connected to the cochlear implant stimulator. This is achieved through a trigger cable. Different trigger cables exist for different cochlear implant manufacturers. For the Interacoustics Eclipse, trigger cables exist which can be used with the following cochlear implant manufacturers: Cochlear Nucleus, Advanced Bionics, Oticon Medical, Medal, and others using a similar trigger cable. With the correct cable selected, insert this into the labelled trigger port on the back of the Eclipse. The other end should be connected to the cochlear implant stimuli system. Run trials to ensure that the two systems are communicating via the trigger cable before beginning patient testing. Note, the stimulator may need to be manually enabled in the software provided by the manufacturer of the cochlear implant or the auditory brainstem implant. The Eclipse comes with a pre-programmed eABR protocol which can be used immediately or modified to suit the test environment. Let's look at how this protocol is set up. Firstly, note that the stimuli per second have been set to external trigger. This means that the cochlear implant stimulator will provide the time-locked stimulus. The Eclipse is able to record a measurement every time a 5-volt source trigger signal with a duration of greater than 10 milliseconds is sent from the cochlear implant stimulator. The stimulus rate from the cochlear implant stimulator must not exceed 50 per second in order to allow sufficient recording and processing time. A good stimuli rate for allowing the nerve to synchronize is around 11 per second. It is also important to note that the Eclipse can be used to send the trigger signal to the cochlear implant stimulator. This technique of recording the eABR is less common than the technique mentioned above, and therefore is not covered in this quick guide video. In addition to setting the stimuli per second, it is also important to select headphone from the transducer list. Even though the cochlear implant is the actual transducer, if the alternative option of inserts is selected, then the software will incorrectly subtract 0.9 milliseconds from the recording. In eABR, the intensity selection boxes are also used differently. It is recommended to use these labels to denote the electrode from the implant being tested. Typically, it is common to test 4 out of the often 22 electrode bands. The final setting that needs to be adjusted is the filter setting for the input amplifier. Cochlear implant manufacturers typically recommend a filter set at 33 to 5000 Hz. For infant eABR, it is sometimes recommended to change the filter setting to 30 to 1500 Hz. Each implant works differently, therefore it is important to consult the manufacturer's test parameters and preferences before testing. This concludes this quick guide video on setting up the system for eABR testing.